Pope Francis has died. The final journey. What legacy did he leave behind? In the heart of Vatican City, a chapter of profound significance has come to a close. Pope Francis, the first Latin American pontiff, passed away on April 21, 2025, at the age of 88. His death, caused by a stroke and irreversible cardiovascular arrest, marked the end of a 12-year papacy that reshaped the Catholic Church. Born Jorge Mario Bergoglio in Buenos Aires, Argentina in 1936, he was a man of many firsts. He was the first Jesuit pope, the first from the Southern Hemisphere, and the first to take the name Francis, inspired by Saint Francis of Assisi. His life, rooted in humility and service, began far from the grandeur of Rome, in a working-class neighborhood where he was one of 5 children. As a young man, he worked as a bouncer and a chemical technician before finding his calling to the priesthood. This diverse background shaped his worldview, grounding him in the realities of poverty, struggle, and community. He rose through the ranks of the church, becoming the Archbishop of Buenos Aires and later a cardinal, known for his simplicity and commitment to the poor. When he was elected pope in 2013, following the historic resignation of Pope Benedict XVI, the world was introduced to a leader unlike any other. From his first moments as pontiff, Francis signaled a new direction for the church. He chose not to wear the ornate red slippers of his predecessors, opting instead for simple black shoes. He declined to live in the lavish apostolic palace, choosing a modest guest house, the Casa Santa Marta, as his residence. His first words to the crowd in St. Peter's Square were not of authority, but of vulnerability, asking the faithful to pray for him. This humility became the hallmark of his papacy, earning him the title, the People's Pope. Pope Francis sought to transform the Catholic Church into what he called a field hospital, a place of healing for the wounded and marginalized. He emphasized mercy over judgment, famously declaring in 2013, "Who am I to judge?" when asked about gay priests. This statement, delivered off the cuff during a press conference, became one of the most quoted lines of his papacy. It signaled a shift in tone, if not always in doctrine, toward greater inclusivity and compassion. He allowed divorced and remarried Catholics to receive communion in certain cases, a move that stirred controversy among conservatives. He permitted priests to bless same-sex couples, though he clarified this was not an endorsement of same-sex marriage. These changes, while limited, were seismic in a church long defined by rigid traditions. Francis also made strides in addressing the role of women in the church, appointing them to positions previously reserved for men. Barbara Jatta became the first woman to direct the Vatican museums in 2016. Sister Natalie Beckwart was given voting rights in the Synod of Bishops in 2021, a historic first. Sister Raffaella Petrini was named president of the Governorate of Vatican City State, another groundbreaking appointment. While he stopped short of ordaining women as priests or deacons, his actions opened doors for future discussions. His commitment to the poor was unwavering, rooted in his experiences in Argentina. He spoke out against unbridled capitalism, calling it a barrier to understanding the plight of the marginalized. His 2015 encyclical, Laudato Si, was a landmark document on climate change, urging humanity to care for our common home. It was praised as a moral call to action, influencing global discussions and contributing to the Paris Agreement. Francis argued that environmental destruction was not just a scientific issue, but a spiritual one, requiring an ecological conversion of the heart. His global outreach extended to interfaith dialogue and peace-building. In 2021, he became the first pope to visit Iraq, meeting with Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani, a revered Shiite leader. He visited Mosul, a city ravaged by ISIS, to promote reconciliation and coexistence. His travels to predominantly Muslim countries and his calls for peace in conflict zones like Ukraine underscored his belief in human fraternity. His encyclical Fratelli Tutti emphasized solidarity and the role of religions in fostering peace. Francis was a vocal advocate for migrants, making his first papal trip in 2013 to Lampedusa, a Mediterranean island overwhelmed by asylum seekers. He criticized policies of mass deportation, including those of U.S. President Donald Trump, arguing that Christian love demanded compassion for the vulnerable. His outspokenness on migration often put him at odds with political leaders, but he remained unapologetic. Yet, his papacy was not without controversy or criticism. Conservatives accused him of diluting church doctrine, particularly on issues like same-sex blessings and communion for the divorced. In Africa, where the church is growing rapidly, Bishops resisted his permission for same-sex blessings, highlighting deep cultural divides. Traditionalists like Cardinal Raymond Burke and Bishop Joseph Strickland openly challenged his reforms, with some even labeling his papacy a catastrophe. Francis responded by marginalizing his critics, stripping Burke of Vatican privileges and dismissing Strickland from his diocese. His handling of the clergy sexual abuse crisis drew mixed reactions. While he made significant changes to church protocols and apologized for past failures, critics argued he did not go far enough. Victims' advocates, like David Cloacy, felt he failed to excommunicate abusers or hold enabling officials accountable. Despite these efforts, the issue remained a stain on his legacy. Financial scandals also plagued the Vatican during his tenure, though Francis took steps to clean up the curia. He fired Cardinal Angelo Becciu in 2020 over allegations of embezzlement and nepotism, and introduced reforms to prevent corruption. His prohibition on senior Vatican managers receiving lavish gifts or using tax havens was a direct response to years of mismanagement. Francis's impact on the global stage was undeniable. He addressed the U.S. Congress in 2015, the first pope to do so, urging action on climate change and poverty. His visit to the White House that same year reinforced his moral authority on global issues. World leaders, from Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres, praised his compassion and commitment to peace. Even those who disagreed with him, like Argentine President Javier Milei, acknowledged his wisdom and goodness after his death. His accessibility to the media set him apart from his predecessors. He gave over 70 book-length interviews and held press conferences on nearly every international flight. His off-the-cuff remarks, while sometimes ambiguous, kept him in the headlines and made him relatable. He was a master of symbolic gestures, like washing the feet of prisoners or embracing the sick, which resonated with millions. Francis's legacy is also tied to his strategic reshaping of the Church's future. He appointed 110 of the 138 cardinals eligible to vote in the upcoming conclave, many from non-European countries. This shift moved the Church's center of gravity toward the global South, where Catholicism is growing fastest. Experts believe this pivot is his most enduring achievement, ensuring the Church reflects its global membership. However, his diverse appointees do not guarantee a progressive successor. African and Asian cardinals, while representing the global South, often hold conservative views on social issues. The conclave, expected to begin within 15 to 20 days of his death, will be a battleground for the Church's direction. Will the next pope continue Francis's inclusive vision, revert to traditionalism, or find a middle path? The process itself is steeped in centuries-old rituals. Cardinal Kevin Farrell, the Camerlengo, confirmed Francis's death and sealed his papal apartments. His body, dressed in simple vestments, was displayed in St. Peter's Basilica for public viewing. His funeral, held on April 26, 2025 outside St. Peter's, was attended by world leaders like Trump, Zelensky, and French President Emmanuel Macron. Francis requested a simple wooden casket and burial in the Basilica of St. Mary Major, breaking with the tradition of St. Peter's. The 9-day mourning period, known as the Novendial, followed as the Church prepared for the conclave. In the Sistine Chapel, cardinals will vote in secrecy, with black smoke signaling no decision and white smoke announcing a new pope. The announcement, Habemus Papam, will introduce the next pontiff to the world. Speculation is rife about potential candidates, like Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle of the Philippines, who could become the first Asian pope. Yet historical precedent favors a European, with 217 of 266 popes hailing from Italy. Francis's death has sparked a global outpouring of grief and reflection. In New York's St. Patrick's Cathedral, mourners called him the Pope of the People. In Buenos Aires, masses honored their native son, whose humility never faded. In Iraq, President Abdul Latif Rashid lauded his interfaith efforts. For many, like Elijah Smith, a young convert to Catholicism, Francis's teachings on social justice were life-changing. LGBTQ Catholics, like those inspired by his non-judgmental approach, found hope in his words, even if full equality remained elusive. His papacy was a paradox, progressive yet bound by tradition, unifying yet divisive. He challenged the Church to be more merciful, but his reforms often stopped short of the radical change some hoped for. His critics saw inconsistency. His supporters saw a return to the gospel's core. As Sarah Riccardi Swartz, a religion professor at Northeastern University, noted, his theology of people emphasized community, joy, and care for the marginalized. This vision, rooted in his Jesuit values, echoed the early Christianity of Jesus and the apostles. The Catholic Church now stands at a crossroads. With 1.4 billion followers, it faces declining numbers in the West and explosive growth in Africa and Asia. The next pope will inherit a divided institution, grappling with questions of doctrine, inclusivity, and global relevance. Francis's legacy, while contested, is a call to compassion, a reminder that the Church must meet people where they are. His life was a testament to the power of humility, and his death a moment to reflect on what it means to lead with love. As the world mourns, the question lingers: who will carry forward the torch of the people's pope? The answer lies in the smoke that will soon rise from the Sistine Chapel, signaling a new era for the Catholic Church. We must restore hope to young people, help the old, be open to the future, spread love, be poor among the poor. We need to include the excluded and preach peace.